to that end, I think one of the things that we want to look at, just like at some point in time back in the internet days, you couldn't bury your head in the sand and just ignore what was happening. You couldn't stay with your on-prem equipment. You couldn't stay just buying, you can't just stay buying more servers and, the classic applications. So there's drivers that are moving us forward. And we talked about a couple of them already. One of them is that we talked about the end user, right? Whether it's our employee or our patients in this case, that are driving us to provide different sets of services that we have never been able to offer before. Telemedicine being one of those factors, and the cloud makes that enablement of those services better. The second we heard is our vendors, our suppliers, the ones that were using their tools. They're moving to the clouds, and naturally, as they move to the cloud, we're going to be moving to the cloud. So what else besides those kind of things are actually driving us to more of a cloud solution? So I'll open this up, Jim. What do you think? What's a couple of things that are driving us to the cloud?
Well, I do think that interoperability, I mean, we talked a little bit about the applications themselves, but even if you have a application that you feel is robust enough to run your business, and you're utilizing all those modules in a single ecosystem, along comes the payer, so an insurance company, whether it be CMS or whatever, and being able to look up eligibility, being able to transfer claims electronically, being able to do all those types of things. And so even if you have the application, trying to get it connected to another business partner in an aligned fashion can be a struggle. If you have cloud enablement in that ecosystem, it can be a little bit easier, because you're going to find a lot of those business partners are in the same cloud ecosystem, and it actually makes those connections much easier than what it would be in an on-prem or even a hybrid solution.
So Jim, let me just kind of pause here for a second, just kind of ask this question. If you think about going back 5, 10, 15 years ago, you made an investment in a platform. And that platform was trying to be this monolithic, be everything to everybody solution set. And so they had all these modules or features that they would enable and roll out. And part of what happened in that world is that we spent a lot of time waiting for that vendor supplier to add that next feature that we needed. Mm-hmm. And I think what I heard you say, that one of the drivers that allows us to be more competitive and to be able to move faster as the market shifts, because we could be able to bring in a feature like you did. I have my main application is driving anything, but I can bring in a feature that they don't have yet, or it's not adequate enough for my business, and I can integrate that in. So interoperability allows me to be able to shift the market faster. Is that?
Yeah, you use the word agile, and that's what it's about. It's about agility.
Okay.
The example that I gave, that scheduling system, 2 years later, the core vendor improved their scheduling system because we were not unique in our abandonment of theirs. And we were able to flip that switch and move back to the core vendor and save that extra money because it was, of course, more cost efficient. But until the product met the business needs, we had to have an alternative solution. And we were agile enough to flip that switch on and then flip it back off after 24 months.
And so you got 2 years of innovation and the efficiency that brought on board. So Dave, besides the interoperability and the some of the other factors we've talked about, what else do you think is driving us to really start to think about our organization as a cloud first organization?
Well, I do have a kind of a luxury of sitting in multiple healthcare organizations as a CIO, and some of the things that I'm hearing now is, hey, we have such a high no-show rate. How can technology help, right? Hey, we have a very high patient responsibility that we've sent all the statements, but we're not collecting, right? And I'm hearing all these unique things on one side of the, one of the businesses, and I'm, kind of driving another healthcare organization from a CIO perspective, where we are in the process of implementing some of those, where, just like what Jim mentioned, right? The scheduling system, right? The old traditional ways, you pick up the phone, call the patient 2 days before for a reminder, or a day before, and if they say yes, I'll still make it. Versus now, it's somewhere in the last 10 years, we started making automated robotic calls. But now nobody answers calls because every call could be a potential spammer, right? So,
Yeah.
the next wave of innovation or the ability to kind of innovate faster is becomes SMS, text messaging, right? That, hey, you've got an appointment, yes or accept or no, and then a patient survey, a patient reminder on their patient balance with a little QR code or a tiny URL that they can click and then to pay through Apple immediately, right? So we've seen this enormous amount of financial recovery or benefits that a practice is gaining just by integrating their EMR with this best-in-class scheduling, accounting, patient engagement system. So and that's kind of those are the challenges that can be easily solved when you kind of have a cloud first strategy and you start looking at the data and then leverage the data to then solve the business problems.
Yeah, so I like that, Dave, and I'm just gonna kind of spin it a little bit differently and just let me know if I'm on target here. So I think number one, when we look at this, is that in the past we had all these systems and they were siloed. And they sat on servers, they were not physically connected, really. There was a LAN connection or something that connected them, but the data with those applications were in their own little siloed database. And what I'm hearing now, as we go to this interoperability, we start connecting these systems, my data now becomes more accessible as a ubiquitous one solid kind of place where I can now start looking at data from a different perspective, which means I can make better decisions. I can analyze the data. I can make better insights. I can look at things that I may not have been able to look at. Maybe it changes the way we do treatments. Maybe it's the way we improve chronic care down the road. Maybe we actually helps accelerate the shift to value-based care as we move, right? So it changes that nature because I'm looking at data holistically instead of these little silos. Did I hear that correctly as we're listening to that?
Yeah, and you're actually more focused around you could achieve 80%, but then the last 20% of innovation becomes harder and harder.
Yes, exactly.
Our focus is not to focus on that 80, it's the 20. And as start asking questions, hey, how can this be solved by technology? Here's our no-show rate percentage of 25. What can we do to make this better from a technology perspective, right? Like using data to drive innovation and using cloud to get more agile and more innovate faster, essentially.
Yeah, I love it. I think one of the things that I love about innovation is we think about innovation transformation in our practices in our healthcare centers is that we have to ask better questions, right?
Yep.
If I have better data, I can ask better questions and do this. And just think about this. We've talked about Amazon today, and we never once mentioned purchasing a book on Amazon, which is how they started, right? They got to a point in time as they were getting more and more data, they started asking better questions. I'm doing well with selling books. How can I sell other things? I'm building this platform to sell other things. How can I leverage the investments I'm making to do other things? And now we're talking about them being the #1 cloud provider in the world, right? And it's through the series of questions that they're asking because they've been able to look at data in a different way.